You spent 30 years climbing the mountain of success. But what if the summit is just the start of your downfall? Carl Jung discovered something most successful men never realize. What brings you success in life's first half will sabotage you in the second. This isn't a midlife crisis, it's a midlife awakening. Look around. Men in their 50s and 60s, they've got the house, the job, the status, but behind the smile, emptiness, restlessness, a silent what now? They're following the morning's map into the afternoon of life, but the terrain has changed, and that old map, it leads nowhere. The goals that once drove you lose their power. The titles that defined you feel hollow. Jung said, in life's first half, you ask, what does the world want from me? But after 50, a deeper question rises. What does my soul want from me? Ignore it, and you'll spend the rest of your life chasing shadows of your former ambition. But here's the trap. The same qualities that made you successful: drive, control, competition, logic. Now, they're blocking your path to fulfillment. The man who strengthens his ego after 50 is like a general still fighting after the war is over. Wrong time, wrong battlefield. Success becomes a velvet cage, safe, comfortable, but it's still a prison. Carl Jung discovered that the second half of life requires a complete reversal from external validation to internal authority, from acquisition to meaning, from competition to contribution, from doing to being, from knowledge to wisdom. You don't throw away your strengths, you balance them with what you left behind. You see now what you buried to survive success. Now holds the gold, that creativity you dismissed as impractical, that curiosity you silenced to focus, that emotional depth you hid to stay strong. They're not weaknesses, they're keys. So, how do you know you're trapped? This is how you're successful, but feel empty. Your depression doesn't respond to therapy. Your relationships keep breaking in the same way. Your body gives you symptoms no doctor can explain. These aren't coincidences. They're soul alarms. Your psyche is whispering. The old map no longer works. You spent decades climbing the mountain, chasing success, status, approval, and now standing at the peak, you realize the journey isn't over. In fact, it's only just beginning, because the real summit is not the one you climbed to. It's the one that lies within. Now, it's time to descend, not into failure or regret, but deep into your own soul. There, in the quiet valleys of your being, you'll find a new kind of peak, a summit defined not by trophies or titles, but by meaning, peace, and true belonging. If you want the full map for this second half of life, to navigate its challenges and discover its rewards, follow now, because the best chapters of your story are still waiting to be written. And you don't have to walk this path alone. We're walking it together. This isn't about climbing higher. It's about going deeper. Not what more can I achieve, but what's trying to emerge through me. Not what does the world expect of me, but what was I born to give? Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So, where do you begin? Start here. Block time for unstructured reflection, like you once blocked meetings. Pay attention to your dreams. They carry messages from your deeper self. Question every should that drives your choices. Reclaim old interests you gave up to be practical. Find other men on the same path. This isn't a journey you walk alone. And so, what's waiting on the other side? Peace. Not based on achievement. Relationships built on presence, not performance. A quiet joy from becoming who you were always meant to be. A 75-year-old man once said, "I spent the first half of my life becoming somebody. Now I'm discovering who that somebody really is." This journey isn't about decline. It's about transformation. You climbed the mountain. Now, it's time to descend, not into failure, but into your soul. And in that descent, you may just find your true summit. For the full map of this second journey, follow now. We're walking this path together. You might wonder, why take this journey inward? Imagine this picture. You've climbed to the top of a mountain, the cheers fade, the spotlight dims, and all that's left is you. No titles, no trophies, just the man you are and the man you have yet to become. It's a quiet moment, but it's also the start of something profound. So why are we doing this? Because success, yes, that thing you've chased your whole life, might just be the trap holding you back now. And trust me, it's not a trap with a flashing neon sign, more like a velvet rope keeping you stuck at the party long after it's over. Now that we see why this journey matters, let's explore 5 practical steps, simple but powerful, that can help you move beyond success and find true fulfillment. Carl Jung identified 5 essential practices for men to move beyond success toward meaning. Simple steps, but not always easy. First, create sacred space for silence. A former military officer told me, "I spent 30 years planning operations. Now I spend 30 minutes each morning with no plan at all." This structured unstructuring became his bridge to a new way of being. Imagine a quiet creek beside your home. No phone, no emails, just breathing. Could you find 10 minutes a day for nothing? So, how do we start this inner journey? Let's break it down with 5 practical steps that Jung found essential. Second, treat your dreams as intelligence, not random static, not leftover pizza thoughts, but coded messages, dispatches from your deeper self. Carl Jung believed that dreams weren't just the mind wandering aimlessly at night. He saw them as the psyche's attempt to communicate, to restore balance where the conscious mind gets stuck. One man I know, a physician, began recording his dreams at 55. At first, the images were bizarre. A school bell, a chalkboard, then a theme emerged: teaching. He didn't think much of it until it kept showing up. Eventually, he listened. Today, at 63, he still practices medicine, but the joy now comes from mentoring young doctors. He says, "It's like I finally found the part of me that had been waiting all along." Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So maybe your next insight doesn't come from a book or a podcast, but from your own dreams. Replacing should with could gave him a surprising new sense of freedom. Try it next time you hear should. It might just save your sanity. So, now that you're dodging the shoulds, let's talk about the shadow. Not the one on your wall, the one following you inside. Fourth, meet your shadow, the parts of yourself you've disowned. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Imagine this. A man retires, proud of his legacy. But under the surface, he resents his children's freedom, fears being forgotten, and snaps at his wife for changing. He doesn't realize those emotions aren't random. They're shadow material, unclaimed, unloved, and now leaking into his relationships. Here's the twist. The shadow isn't evil. It's just exiled strength. A desire, a gift, a regret. We pushed down to fit in. The key? Get curious, not judgmental. Try journaling after irritation. Why did that bother me so much? You might meet a version of yourself waiting to be seen. So, what do you do once the shadow shows up? You don't run. You sit with it, like an old friend you ghosted. Fifth, turn your pain into purpose. One man Jung worked with kept dreaming of broken bridges. At first, he dismissed it. Just weird dream stuff. But over time, he realized he'd burned bridges with his sons during his career chase. So what did he do? He rebuilt one. He started writing letters. Small steps. No apologies yet. Just connection. And years later, his son used those very letters to give a speech at his 70th birthday. The lesson? Your greatest wound might become someone else's compass, but only if you're brave enough to hand it over. Next, find witnesses for your journey. Not cheerleaders or critics, but companions who understand the territory. One man said, "I needed men who could hear me without trying to fix me or compete with me." That alone was revolutionary. Now remember, what emerges beyond the success trap is what Jung called the transcendent function, the capacity to hold opposing truths, strength and vulnerability, certainty and wonder, achievement and presence, doing and being. This isn't perfection, but wholeness. Not having all the answers, but being comfortable with questions. A 72-year-old former CEO said, "I used to think wisdom was accumulating knowledge. Now I know it's surrendering to the mystery." The forces aligned against this journey are formidable. Our culture has no language for this inward turn. Productivity is king. Reflection is suspect. Certainty is rewarded. Questioning is discouraged. Strength admired, vulnerability avoided. Your social circle might say, "Why can't you just enjoy success?" Not knowing restlessness is awakening. Inside, your achiever identity fights this change. It calls it weakness, indulgence, selfishness. Jung noted, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. So, what happens to men who refuse this journey? Jung saw the psyche calcify, hardening into caricatures of youth. The confident becomes rigid, the decisive, controlling, the strong, brittle. I've seen men in their 60s and 70s desperately proving what's long established, answering questions no one asks anymore. The psyche creates symptoms to demand attention. The body speaks what the mind won't admit. Relationships mirror what the heart can't see. Dreams intensify what consciousness rejects. And here's what Jung found that few expect. This journey, though hard, brings gifts. Joy deepens. Relationships become authentic. Time feels expansive, not limited. Play returns, not as escape, but genuine expression. A 68-year-old said, "Dropping the performance after decades of being what others needed, now I'm discovering what it means to simply be." Another said, "My emotional range expanded. I feel more, without being overwhelmed. It changed my relationships." Now, friends, this isn't about retirement plans or bucket lists. It's the most important expedition of your life, the one toward wholeness. It asks not, "What more can I accomplish?" but, "Who am I beyond my accomplishments?" Not, "What will others think?" but, "What does my soul require?" This path is mapped by those before you. Jung gave the coordinates. Countless men have crossed. The invitation stands. The path awaits. The only question, will you accept the journey already begun within you? If this stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. Leave a comment below, or just a heart, and share this with another man who might need to hear it today. Subscribe for more grounded wisdom and real conversations. We're not here to fix you. We're here to walk with you.